want Brad to go next, or you want us to do this special? Okay. Can you hear me? I want to apologize for the Sunday I did my testimony. I did not think to get the microphone so everyone could hear me that day. So I'm going to use the microphone today. Doris and myself have got something we want to bring to you today. Now, she's the mastermind of this, so she's the one that created this. We're going to be covering two songs, The Holy Hills of Heaven Call Me, and I Feel Like Traveling On. And also, I'm going to be reading a devotion out of this Billy Graham Hope for Each Day devotional that the preacher gave us on one Wednesday night, not too long ago. I enjoy this. It's a lot of good devotions in it. Do you ever feel like just asking God just to help you with your troubles? You feel like, Lord, just take me, because we all have troubles in our lives and sorrows, and times we just don't understand. We want to just give up. But we can't. We must go on, and God will help us through these times of sorrowful times. So I want to read this devotion, and God works in mysterious ways. This was the devotion for yesterday, and it goes right along with what Doris and myself are trying to do here. It's the reality of heaven. And the scripture here says, God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And that's from Revelation 7:17. And the devotion goes like this. And I'm assuming this is Billy Graham talking here. In the midst of his suffering, Job said, man is born to trouble as surely as sparks fly upward. And you can find that in Job 5:7. It is true. I have never met a person who did not have troubles of some kind. Fear and sickness rob us of happiness. Broken relationships and shattered dreams destroy our peace. But one of God's greatest promises is that all of these will be forgotten in heaven, where there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Revelation 21:4. This is the supreme reality of heaven. Throughout eternity, there will be an intimate relationship between Christ and his church. He will be the Lamb who is on the throne, and he shall lead his people to fountains of living waters. With this great certainty and assurance, the future holds no terrors we cannot face. Beyond any crisis lies heaven and the utopia of our dreams. Thus, Christians should never be filled with fear, discouragement, or despondency. Ahead of us is heaven. Hope for today. The joys of this life pale in comparison to heaven. The pains will no longer be remembered. Each day should be filled with joy and anticipation of knowing we are one day closer to an eternity with Christ. The song goes like this, and please listen to the words. The holy hills of heaven call me to mansions bright across the sea, where loved ones wait and crowns are given. The hills of home keep calling me. This house of flesh is but a prison. Bars of bone hold my soul, but the doors of clay are going to burst wide open when the angels set my spirit free. I'll take my flight like the mighty eagle when the hills of home start calling me, calling me.
I'm just going to take a second to introduce Brad. I've known him since he was a little boy. And I remember some very intense prayer meetings that we had over at Antioch Church because Janet was keeping us updated with all that Brad was going through. And so I asked him several weeks ago, would he share his salvation testimony, and then he's going to come back with part 2 of the testimony a little bit later and tell us all that God's doing in his life now as he surrendered to the Lord. I told him, and we had prayer in the back, I said, don't be nervous, just relax. I've been nervous for him the whole time. So anyway, y'all welcome Brad as he comes.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Brad Townsend. I grew up here. Was born in 1984, August 31st, 1984. Got a birthday coming up. My dad sat back there. I had great parents. My childhood was amazing. Me and Kyle were spoiled. Dirt bikes, skateboards, ramps. Every weekend we're on the boat. Disney World, all the stuff that you want as a child. I had all these things. Monetary stuff was given to me. My mother struggled with addiction for most of her life. I think it's pretty heavy on that side of my family. I think kind of maybe on both sides, but she, I guess, got sober when she found out she was pregnant with me, and was doing good. And she got a job with the post office and got in an accident when I was probably 5 or 6. Got a head-on collision with a school bus, and it really messed her up. Her and Dad. Dad almost got killed too. Right when I was young, but they ended up prescribing her Oxycontin. This was like the early 90s. So I think that kind of opened up that door. Me and Kyle, we were pretty good kids for the most part. When I started this walk with Jesus, I kind of want to figure out like where is this coming from? Like where did this start? I know that addiction is just like a part of the root problem, right? So I was kind of trying to figure out where did I start going bad. And he brought to remembrance, 4th grade, we were in me and Kyle, we went to Southeastern Academy private school, and there was this kid in there, and I brought a lighter to school, and the kid lit the dumpster on fire, and I was getting expelled, and I remember the attention I got from that, and I guess I was seeking this attention. And at that moment, I grabbed onto this identity of like, this is who I am. I'm this bad kid. This is how I get this attention. I guess I was craving. So at that very moment, I kind of locked into this. I'm the bad boy identity. This lie of who I am. And that progressed pretty heavily. I started using drugs at a young age, probably 12 or 13. We started smoking weed, and it was that was a progression too. We were just kids, and it started off innocent, just the soft drugs at first, and it gradually got worse. I remember stealing painkillers from my mom, and that's when it kind of opiates bring a different. It kind of grabs you at that point. So I got my first painkiller I stole from my mom, and I kept going down this road. And it just kept getting darker. Started getting in trouble. I would end up in jail a lot. I was on house arrest a few times, and I remember I was on house arrest, and let me get this straight. Okay. I would get in trouble. One point in time, I had gotten on house arrest, and I was partying, and Dad wouldn't let me stay with him anymore. I had to go stay with his mother, my grandmother Townsend. And my whole life, I had known her as a church lady. I never really got close, and I was probably 17 now. And she told me how she met the Lord. And she struggled with alcohol. Now, I only knew her as a church lady, but apparently she was a pretty bad drunk. And apparently my granddad was cheating on her, and she had found the woman and had took her and her kids out in the woods. And she was like, Brad, I was going to kill this lady. And she said, and the voice of the Lord spoke to me right then. And she got saved at that moment. And I remember hearing that, and for the first time in my life, like I saw her as like a person, you know? And I could relate with that. But I'd never heard anybody tell me of being saved at such a dark time, you know? And that Christ came in, and she heard from the Lord, and that saved her. So that would play into my salvation later on. Throughout my life, my mother fell back into her addiction, and it kind of took a toll on my dad's relationship, my parents' relationship. Probably when I graduated, it had worn to the place where they had got separated, and my mom finally went to rehab when I was right around 18, and I was super excited for her because I knew she was going to get it together. You know, they had separated, and she finished her rehab stint and had gotten with this new guy. This guy's name was Jamie, and she had moved in with him. And things looked like it was going pretty good. Mom was back to normal. We would go out there, and slowly but surely we started partying with them, drinking, and no heavy drugs, but it was still partying. And one night she called me, and she asked me. She said, "Hey Brad, if I moved to Florida, would you go with me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She didn't say exactly what was going on, but she said that stuff wasn't working out between her and Jamie, and that she was going to move, and she asked me to go. Me and Mom were like best friends, so of course I told her I'd go. That night she asked me if I was going to come out there and see her, and for some reason I had something going on, some kind of party or something, so I didn't go, and she died that night. And like I never got to see her again after that. Her death really kind of broke me, and at this point when she died, I kind of fully just fell into addiction, headlong. It took a long time for me to get over that, but at this point, I'm probably 21. I stopped caring. I started using heavily, very heavy. I remember one New Year, we were going to a party. I had a friend, Mark. He came and picked me up, and we were going to this party, and he was like, "Don't start using until we get there," because I'd black out before I'd get to the parties or whatever. So he wouldn't let me do anything until we got there. So we're on the way to this party, and we're going probably 75 in a little Nissan 300 ZX. And it started raining a little bit, and Mark started messing with his phone, and we ended up going off the road and hitting a tree going 75 miles an hour. And I'm sitting here, and Mark's sitting here. I mean, there's little two-door vehicle. Mark was in a coma for 3 months and almost died, and I came out without a scratch on me. And I remember at that time there was something pulling on my heart, like, "Hey man, you got to change," And of course I didn't. But I remember that then it was the first time when I really felt like I was going down the wrong path. Of course, I did not change. 23, I met Olivia, the love of my life. She came to my house, and I remember when I first saw her, I was like, I want to marry this girl. She stuck by me off and on till now. We'd break up because I'd be in jail or had to go to rehab or something, but this whole time she always stood by me. At 27, I tried heroin for the first time in my life, and I IV'd it, and I found what I thought was the whole purpose for life at that moment. And I really, really did fall into addiction hardcore then. So Dad's been my standby guy the whole time. He never really gave up on me, but he got to the place where he had nowhere else to do, so he told me I had to go to a rehab. And the first rehab I ever went to was called Hebron Colony. It was in Boone, North Carolina, little faith-based place. And he had found it, and I went up there, and you had to be at least clean enough to get in there. And this was probably the first time in my whole life I had 2 weeks of being clean when I got there, And they let me in. I walked in the door, and it was this little church in the middle of the mountains. And the guys, when I walked in there, they told me, they said, "This isn't, you hear, oh, this is a disease," and they said that God can take this from you. And I remember being perplexed by that. He said, God's going to encounter you here one of two ways. Either it will happen gradually over the whole period of time, or it will happen all at once. And me being a drug addict, I remember being like, man, I need that to happen immediately. I need it all at once. So this place, it was there's a little cabin up in the woods, and you would stay there, and then they had the little church you would go to 3 times a day. And then they'd have different jobs. You could clean yards, or they had a thrift store, or you worked in the kitchen. And I ended up working at the thrift store. And we were doing that. I was in there probably a month. And I remember one night we were in the little chapel, and the guy was preaching, and he said, he said, has God ever broken your heart? And man, that thing stuck out to me. I was like, that's a very odd thing to say. But when he said, if he hasn't ever broken your heart, ask him to break your heart. So that night, as I was going to bed, I remembered that. And I asked, I said, God, break my heart? I went to sleep. I thought I went to sleep, but it felt like immediately I started having a panic attack. I walked outside, and it's like 3:30 in the morning, and this thing's building on me, and it feels like I'm about to have a panic attack. I can't breathe. Of course, I go outside to smoke a cigarette, and I look at the little chapel, and it's like, man, this thing's glowing. Like it's like it's on fire almost, and there's something pulling me to this chapel. So everything in me was pulling me to this chapel. So all by myself, 3:30 in the morning, middle of the mountains, boom, I walk in this chapel, and I am hit with the most love I've ever felt in my life. It was just flooded me. This was the high I've been looking for. It's the love of God. Every hair on my arm is sticking up. And at that moment, I knew that God was real. I knew that there is a God. I had no idea who Jesus was, but I knew that there's a God, and He loves me. It would take quite some years before I met Jesus. But this feeling lasted probably 36 hours. I'm talking about the hairs on my arm standing up. This high is the best thing the only thing I know to call it. And I knew that there was a God. Of course, that faded away. I graduated and got my little paper, and I went home. This was the same time, I guess, Obamacare was coming out, so I got me some insurance. I had never had insurance my whole life, so I get insurance at the same time as I'm getting out of this place. And that was important because after that, I learned that I could go to rehab. It became my last resort. Every time I would go, I would pick up something, but I wasn't ready. So now I have this insurance. When I burn all my bridges, when I use up everybody I can, I go to rehab and give me a little time to start over, get my way back up. So that became a reoccurring thing I would do. I was in Wilmington Treatment Center, and I got out, and there was a guy there. He let me move in with him. So I moved in with him for a little while, and they have the 12 steps and meetings and things. And basically what that does is that teaches you to find God without calling Him Jesus. You know, you're praying, you're seeking this higher power. It really opens up people to prayer life. So I'm kind of halfway doing that, and I'm living with this guy. And we started drinking, and of course it falls apart very quickly. I had another friend up there, Ashley, and she really wanted to help me. So she let me move in with her for a bit. And at this point in life, like, I didn't think very much of myself. I always heard you're a piece of crap. You know, I would tell myself that. I heard it so much, it just became what I thought I was. And I remember Ashley, I was talking to her, and I said, oh, I'm just a piece of crap. And she stopped, and she looked me in my eyes, and she said, you're not. And it was like, she meant it. And she saw something in me that, like, I didn't see. But I could tell by the way she said it, like, she means that. And something about that, it sparked something inside of me. It was just her genuine, like, you're not that. So eventually I burned that bridge as well. But she found me a facility in California, and my insurance would pay for the plane ride and everything. So I figured I had nothing else left to lose here. Let's go to California and try and see what they could do for me there. So she took me to the airport. I got on the plane and went to Temecula. I get to Temecula, and I'm in this detox facility, and this guy, I'm probably 2 weeks in there, and I'm thinking, well, I'm really going to try this. I got nothing else to lose, and this guy comes up to me and says, hey, man, you know I can get you paid to do this. What are you talking about? And it's pretty much insurance fraud, body brokering, where you would go to detox for 2 weeks, you would leave. He knew somebody that worked at the rehab, and you would leave, and they would pay you the insurance money, and you would go use or whatever, and then go to another place. You would do that until you burn up your insurance. A lot of people died doing that. But me being a fresh addict, this sounded exactly what I wanted to do. So I started doing that. I would leave, go get high for a few days, and then go back to another detox. And you're making like $2,000 to $5,000 every time. I got introduced to methamphetamines in California, and I had never done meth. And what it does is it instantly sends me into a psychosis, and this opens up doors to very dark stuff. I would lose track of weeks. I'd wake up in jail or at the hospital. I'd call my dad and ask him to come pick me up. I'm thousands of miles away. I'm losing my mind. And I know that was just driving him crazy. Multiple times I found myself not knowing where I was or how I ended up there. And it's only by the grace of God that I didn't die. The last time, so I did that, I was using and losing my mind and not knowing where I'm at, and waking up in strange places. And what meth would do, when I would go into the psychosis on meth, it would make me feel like everybody's after me, and like everybody's trying to get me, and there's this fear that you've got to get away from everything, and it's terrible. And I remember not knowing where to go. I went to a church and sat out in front. I called Dad, and he couldn't help me. He told me to go to the police department. I went to the police department and told them, like, hey, people were after me. They see it every day there, so they told me, get out of here. So I went and sat in front of a church, and the doors were locked. Eventually, I see a guy pull up, and he left his car running, and he went in his house. So I jumped in his car, and he jumps out. He comes out, and he's asking me to get out. But to me, like, this was my way out, and I had to get away. So I leave with this guy's car, get in a short, high-speed police chase, get in a wreck, and end up, I'm facing 20 years in prison. I got charged with carjacking, felony evading, 4 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, DUI. So the jig was up. I come to, and I'm in jail, and there's no getting out. Like, you're going to prison. This ended up saving my life. So I go to jail, I go to prison, and in California, as soon as you go in, they send you to whatever race you are. So if you're white, you go to the whites. If you're black, you go to the blacks, Mexicans. It's just, that's what happens when you get in there. So I go to the white guys, and they do that because they have like race riots, and if you're not with your people and one of these things happens, like, you're going to probably get killed. So I end up with my race, and we start doing prison. I start to figure out how the prison works, and just getting used to that type of life. There's a program in there that they would give you medicines to help fight your addiction, but you had to go to these classes, this MAT, and then you would take this class. So I joined up with that and started going to this class. And this was the first time I saw somebody's actual salvation for the first time in my life. There was this guy's name was Jacali, and I knew him when in his darkest time, like when he was using, and he had got sent to the hole for a while, And when he come out, man, he was like singing and playing his guitar, and he's just like extremely happy. And I remember being like, dude, what happened? And he starts telling me about Jesus. And I'd never seen nothing like it. Like, this was real. I could feel the joy of the Lord on this guy. And to watch him and him trying to tell me, I knew it was real. I just couldn't fathom it at that moment. I got to watch this guy. I got to watch God carry this dude through our whole prison term. He ended up losing his son while we were in there, and I watched him really lean into the Lord during a dark time. He had a little baby bird that he found. He said, God gave me this bird. This is my son. So he's got this little baby bird that he would keep with him. And it was really beautiful in the long run of it. I got to see this guy. But I figure out prison. I'm in there I've been in there probably 3 years. I've kind of got the root of how to live in there. It's Easter time, and they're watching the Passion of the Christ. And again, this pulling towards this thing, this pull to go see this movie. And I go, and I'm in there with all the guys that found God in prison, and they're asking me, like, what are you here? I'm like, I don't know, I just want to watch this movie. But this whole time I'm being pulled towards Jesus. I met a guy in there, his name was Polly, and he was a big time white supremacist guy, all in the gangs, and he was trying to get me to join in with him. And I'd read the literature, and none of it made sense, but I remember him telling me, he said, man, you got to have something that you live for. And that stuck out to me. So he's right. And I found something to live for. I lived for Jesus. But when he said it was the truth, it was like, you got to find something to live and die for. His was his race. But I remember when I found Christ, I remember Polly saying that, you got to find something to live for. And it's like, man, I finally found it. So I'm getting towards the end of my term, and I can't go home when I get out. I got to finish my parole. Basically, when I get out, I'm still stuck in California. I remember when I first got in, I wasn't a very praying man, but I remember getting in and begging God for Olivia to not get married and like not find somebody else. I remember that. I remember strictly praying that because I didn't think I'd ever see her again. You know, it's like, man, I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. We didn't talk the whole time, but I remember that prayer. Anyway, so they let me go, and it's the day to get out, and they sent me to Costa Mesa, California. That's like where the big Jesus revolution happened in like the 70s or 60s. So I don't know why they sent me there, but that's where they put me. It ended up being a blessing. So I get out, and they put me in this place called Nancy Clark. It's like a transitional house for people getting out of prison. And what it is, it's like an apartment complex that this lady, I guess, had bought. And everybody you'll have like 3 roommates, and then they have class in one of the apartments. But you stay there until you get on your feet. And one of the guys that ran it, his name was George Hollister. And he was an ex-convict, and you could tell like he was passionate about what he was doing. And I remember seeing that, and I appreciated the fact that like he knew where we were at, and then he's turned his life around and he's given back to these guys. He would really pour into you. So I'm doing the groups, and they would let you leave for a certain window of time. You couldn't stay out overnight, but you could go to meetings, and I started getting involved in NA and AA. Throughout that time, I met a little old lady, and she needed help moving. I think that's what she wanted. She wanted me to help her move. And I remember when I met her, it's just I felt like it was my grandmother. You know, there was like this part in me like, you need to help this lady. So I did, and we're moving. It was New Year's Eve, and she had a Tesla, and she had forgot to charge the battery on the Tesla. So New Year's Eve 2022 or 2021, I'm stuck on the side of the road. Her Tesla ran out of battery, and I'm stuck helping this lady I don't even know all night. We had to call 4 tow trucks and finally got back. But because of me being out all night, they kicked me out. So you got to go somewhere for a few weeks or whatever. I didn't really have any place to go. I didn't really know anybody there. So I ended up relapsing while I was out on these streets of California. I found myself in the same place I was at before I went to prison. They're all after me again. I'm about to go. It's that same psychosis that I was in before. And I remember I was walking, just about to probably go back to prison, walking on this road. And out of nowhere, I hear a familiar voice. And I couldn't really see who it was. It was some lady. She said, "Hey, come here." And as I walk up to this lady, some homeless lady, but her voice sounded familiar. She said, "Here, you need to take a sip of this. I've probably been up 3 days." I don't know what she gave me a sip of, but when I took a sip of it, when I put it back down and looked up, it looked like my mother, but like 25-year-old my mom. I don't know. I still don't know what that was, but I feel like it was an angel. And I passed out. I woke up, all my stuff was gone, but I didn't keep going down that path. You know what I mean? Whatever that was stopped me from continuing down that path. I woke up, everything's gone. I'm living out of a backpack, that's gone. So I'm on this beach, Newport Beach, California, and the sun's coming up. And I remember just being at such peace and having nothing. It was a very strange feeling that I don't think a lot of people get, to lose everything. And being okay with that for just a short period of time. It was the most peaceful thing I'd felt. Sun's coming up, the waves are coming in, and I don't have anything, but I was okay with that. Anyway, that passed very shortly after, and I started trying to figure out what I was going to do. I found out there was a detox in Anaheim, so I made my way to Anaheim, and I was just going to sleep out in front of it until I got in. That's how bad I didn't want to keep going down this path. I knew that I was going to end up dying. So I go to Anaheim, and I'm waiting for this detox to open. And it's probably 3:30 in the morning, in the middle of the street of Anaheim. I'm walking to this detox, and this overwhelming feeling of I needed to just surrender. So all by myself again, 3:30 in the morning, I fall down on my knees and I just proclaim with my mouth, "I love you, Jesus," right? I just said it. And when I open my eyes, I see a guy walking by. He wasn't there. I don't know who that guy was, but there was something about that speaking it with my mouth, that changed something. The next day I got into the detox and started to get back somewhat on my feet. From there, I got into this program, and they would let me go to meetings and things like that. And I remember I was walking in Huntington Beach, and there's a pier there. As I'm walking, there's this lady was doing a painting, and I like art, so I'm sitting there watching her paint, and this guy comes up to me, and he starts talking to me. I didn't know that they were together there in a church, but man, he starts telling me about myself. Like he knows me. And he said, "You've been running your whole life. Like you've been running from something, and you've been looking for something your whole life." He said, "You're about to find it." And as this guy's talking to me, that same feeling I got in Boone, in that little chapel, I start to feel this again. So I go to the end of the pier, and like everything he said was like a dagger. Like, man, this dude knows exactly who I am. But it was the Lord speaking through him, So I go to the end of this pier, bro, and I just cry. Like I don't know what it is or how I'm gonna get it, but I know that I got something coming. So I ended up finding me a shelter to get into. I got a job. I got a job moving, and I got into a shelter in Costa Mesa. And the shelter was really cool, man. You go in there, they give you a bed and a shower, and they give you. You couldn't just walk in there. You would have to get an Uber in. It was like a fenced area, but they would order you an Uber to work, and they really help you get back on your feet. So I get into the shelter, and this girl, July, she gave me a job, really gave me a second chance at life. So she's got a moving company, a moving truck, and we go out and we move things, and once that blew up, she owned a juice store. Anyway, she let me work with her. So I got this job, and I'm in this shelter, and I start really doing the 12 steps. I'm going to meetings, and I start doing these steps. And step 4 is you make a fearless moral inventory of yourself. So you put down all these things that you've done. And my sponsor at the time, he said, hey, if you don't put it on paper, it's going to come out in a worse way. So I'm on step 4, and I'm going to work, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, man, I just start crying. And this lasts for like 2 weeks. Like I'm just crying out of nowhere, bawling on the bus on the way to work, and I really didn't know what it was coming from. And one night I was taking a shower at the shelter, and out of nowhere, I know now it was the Lord, but then I didn't know what this information is. But I had never forgiven the guy, Jamie, the guy my mom lived with. I'd never forgiven him for quote unquote killing her, and I'd never forgiven myself for not going out there that night. So once I got that forgiveness, I was able to move forward. It was a huge thing, this unforgiveness that was holding me back for so long. And just how it happened, like, man, I'm by myself at 3:30 in the morning in this homeless shelter, and like the Lord's just healing me from things, you know? So I continue to try and get my life together. I got this job. I'm sober. I'm working these steps, and I met a woman. I met a young girl, and we became very close really fast. And I'm on a list to get this apartment, so I'm thinking, like, man, I got this all figured out. I got this apartment. I'm sober, and she moves in. We move into an apartment. I move out of the shelter. I move into this apartment. For the first time in my life, I think like everything's working out. Like I'm not on drugs anymore. I have this person who I feel really close to, and I live in Southern California. Like I made it. I'm not in prison. But she started struggling. She started wanting to use again. Her drug of choice was cocaine, and I remember that scared me so bad. I was like, man, if you start using, like it's going to end badly. But she had some psych meds that I knew from prison that you could use, you could abuse them, and it would give you a similar feeling to the drugs you like. So knowing that, I told her that, and she started to abuse these psych meds. And one morning, I woke up, and she wasn't in the bed, and I walk in the bathroom, and she's dead. She had overdosed from these meds, from using these meds, and it just like, it broke me. I found her, and she was blue and cold, like I still remember it, but I had to call her parents, but something inside me broke at that moment. It's like my whole life, this addiction has taken everything from me. It's taken my mom, it's taken lots of friends, my life, all this is coming to a head, like this is the reason why, this addiction. So I started really like, I'm not going to do this anymore. That night, the night she died, I went back to my apartment, and it's like, I could feel her spirit still in the room. It was like she she was still there, and probably in the middle of that night, I heard her voice. I heard her voice clear as day. And what this did is this has opened up the door to, I guess, the spirit realm. You know, like I'm hearing this girl's voice that's turning into other voices. And it's not stopping. It's a continuous at first it sounded sweet to it's turned to darker things. And I know now that these are demons, you know, what I'm hearing. And these voices are real. So that continues to grow. I can't stay in my apartment. When I lay on the bed, everything shakes. It's like stuff's falling off the walls, so I can't stay there. I'm freaking out. I go and stay with my friend through a meeting I'd met, and I fall asleep and I wake up and he's gone. Everybody went to work. And that morning when I wake up, it's like my eyes wouldn't stop rolling. It's like, and this voice, it's the loudest voice I've ever heard in my life. And it's just kill yourself, over and over again. It's in my head. It's not stopping. So I'm like, man, I got to do this. This is hell. I'm in hell, and if I don't do this, it's just going to keep going. So I look out the window, and it's only 2 stories, so that's just going to hurt. And I don't have a gun or anything, so I see my belt, and I take the belt, and I figure I'm going to go hang myself. And I go in the bathroom, and his voice is continuing, and I put the belt around my neck, and I wrap it around the shower pole or whatever, and I gotta kill myself. Like, this is the only thing that's gonna make me stop. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and from a place of complete brokenness, I cried out to Christ. And I didn't say anything. It wasn't a specific prayer. It was just my heart, I guess, from that place of being broken. It wasn't a prayer that my grandmother had taught me, or that a preacher had taught me, or that anything I had heard. It was from my lowest point in my life. Christ had met me. And that moment, the voices stopped. And like the fear of God fell on me. I knew this is real. It's like I was instantly saved. Heart change. Like, I know that this is the truth. These voices are gone, and like I'm a new person immediately. Now this voice that I've been hearing, these demons, it's a voice of love and compassion, and it's having me go and beg people to change their lives. You know, now I'm guided by this. And when I say voices, it's more like a thought. I'm not here. It's like your conscience almost, you know? It's hard to explain. But, so, at the lowest point in my life, the man who I had spent my whole life running away from, I finally surrendered. Not long after that, this guiding voice inside of me, I was skateboarding through Costa Mesa, and I look up and I'm in front of this church. The doors are wide open. It's the Church of the Nazarene, Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene. So I went inside. There's 12 men sitting around reading My Utmost for His Highest and discussing God. Later at that library, I met a 21-year-old kid named Jesse. Jesse lived in his Ford Explorer, and he told me that God had led him to the library. This young man had discipline. He taught me to read Scripture. He taught me to pray. Eventually, he moved in with me, and we began to read the Bibles on the bus. We read the Bible when we would go to church, and we'd serve. We'd go clean up beaches. So I got this 21-year-old kid discipling me, you know? And he lives in his car, and he's guided by the Spirit. I've never seen nothing like it. But it was real, and God put him in my life. So he's with me. He's teaching me how to pray and read. And one night he said, he's like, Brad, you got to commit to something. So that night I prayed, and I was like, God, what do you want me to do? And God brought me back to Wilmington. He said, you come back here. He said, if you don't, your brother's going to die. go to hell, and I would be leaving Olivia to the wolves. So I made at that time I needed to go home, so I stuck to that. All right, this is what I got to do. Only problem with that is I hadn't been working really, hadn't had any money saved up. So I knew I wanted to marry Olivia, but I didn't have a ring or anything. So Dad finally got me a ticket to get on the plane to get back, and I was going to this NA meeting, and the day I went, the doors were locked, and this voice inside me, the Holy Spirit, says, "Go to the first rehab you were at." It didn't make any sense, but I went anyway. And I went up there, and I knocked on the door. I was just going to tell them thanks for trying. And when I knocked on the door, the guy said, "Oh, Mr. Townsend, we're about to mail this back. It's a $5,000 check that they had sent me from prison that I used to get my wedding ring with." So after that, I knew that this is the voice of God. And it's just been guiding me since then. Came back to North Carolina. I married Olivia. We've had our son Caden. I got to baptize Kyle. And there's just so much more he's done in my life. From living the lie that I was the bad kid, that I was a heroin addict, that I was an inmate, that I was a homeless man. The person standing in front of you now, look what Jesus has done. Today, I work with people struggling with the same addictions that nearly destroyed me. I'm a counselor. I'm a peer support specialist. I've started 2 nonprofit ministries in Lumberton. Cause We Care, we help people who struggle with addiction, connect with faith-based recovery and peer support. And then I have a children's ministry. I'm trying to get a skate park built and stuff like that. But my salvation came at the darkest moment of my life, and I don't know how to get it any other way. Like, I wish I could have got it out of the church pew, but for some reason, God's allowed me to go through these tough times so that I can use that to help others, I guess. That's what I'm saying. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if I've used up all my time. Am I good? Thank you.
When I was in seminary, we'd have preaching class. We'd each have to prepare a sermon to preach. And after I had my turn, each student took their turn to preach. And then the professor would stand in front of class and say, "All right, class, how did you hear Brother Barnes?" I would conclude our service this morning with that simple question: how did you hear our brother? The same God, the same Jesus that transformed his life is here this morning. And he still does what only he can do. There were times when we would get prayer requests for Brad, and I think to myself, what's the use? We've been praying and praying, it just seems to get worse. But that's answered prayer that stood before this church this morning. That's what God does. So I hope you've been encouraged not to give up when it's so easy to. And I hope you've been reminded of our Lord's ability. The old preachers used to say he can reach from the uttermost to the guttermost. And I'll tell you what, he said at the end of his testimony, he didn't know why he couldn't have got saved from a church pew. Because there are a whole lot of people that won't get saved from a church pew, but they'll get saved. Listen to what you've been through and seeing what Jesus can do. I'm so thankful. I found the Lord at 9 years old. I never knew anything else but church. There's a place in the kingdom for everybody. I talked to a young man this morning, and we'll close with this. He's struggling with his salvation. I'm teaching a new members class over at Antioch. The young man said, if I could just get saved like Saul did, like Paul did, I could have that kind of salvation. I said to him, everybody gets saved the way Paul gets saved, if they ever get saved. The circumstance of the salvation was different, but the same Jesus and the same blood and the same forgiveness and the same Lord. Whether it's in a Sunday school room or in a rehab or on a beach, it's the same salvation, just different circumstances. And maybe the Lord brought you here this morning for that very purpose. We're going to sing a hymn of invitation, and Larry's going to come at the end of that and share some announcements, and we'll be on our way. But I'm going to ask Philip to come. I'm going to ask that we stand together. Listen, if you're here this morning and you don't know Jesus, here's all you need to do. Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. Save me. And on the authority of this word, that prayer will be answered. Maybe you know somebody today that's right where Brad found himself. Maybe you just want to come to the altar and breathe their name in prayer and say, Lord, you did it for him. Do it for my loved one today. Whatever it might be, this is our time to be obedient to whatever the Spirit would say as we sing together.